Hey everyone, and welcome back once again. This is the second part of the previous video, which was the most dangerous criminals to ever make to the FBI's most wanted list. If you haven't already seen that video, click on the eye icon right there so that you actually know what we're talking about here. So, as continuing with the list, at number 6, I have a criminal that is still wanted after all these years. If you're thinking that some of these guys should have already been caught by the police way sooner due to their presence on the FBI's most wanted list, well, here's your chance to put your eyes away because this dude is still missing after all these years. Santiago Villalba Medros, if I'm pronouncing that right, was added to the list in 2017. And there is a $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. So if you have any information in that regard, please just contact FBI so that you could get the money. This guy is an extremely trigger-happy gang member who in 2010 fired into a car just because one of the passengers was wearing the wrong color jacket. The victim, who actually had no ties to the gang, was seriously injured, and his sister, who was driving the car at that moment, was killed. Just a couple of weeks later, Medros and his gang buddies were actually looting a car which they believed belonged to somebody who owed them money. A group of men confronted them, and that's when Medros decided that a lethal escalation of the situation was in order. He just fired randomly into the crowd, striking and killing a guy who was simply in a wrong place at the wrong time. He has been on the run ever since, and though FBI believes he initially fled to Mexico, they also believe that he may have returned to the US by now. Now just take a look at this picture. He is about 5 feet and 10 inches with the letter S tattooed on his left shoulder and letter E on his right. If you spot him by any chance, by contacting FBI, you could score a sweet payday while helping put this person behind the bars. Next on the list comes the famous Sam of Philadelphia. For their existence, pretty much every violent gang in Philadelphia can thank Samuel Christian, a notorious crook who founded Philly's Black Mafia in 1968. That bustling narcotics organization was responsible for at least 50 murders, with its offshoot Telly up to a good 25 more. What I mean by that is the Junior Black Mafia. Christian himself drew heavy attention from the authorities in early 70s after personally blowing away a competitor. He did so in 1972 in a nightclub shootout in which 3 other people also died. He also killed another competitor of his, which was Major Coxon, who once actually ran for mayor in Camden, New Jersey. Samuel killed him in 1973. He capped off this run by attempting to gun down a cop in Harlem Record Store in 74. He did this around 8 days after making to the FBI's most wanted list, whereupon he was arrested and sentenced to 15 years to life. This did little to curb his criminal ways, however. Upon his 1988 release, he alternately beefed with and attempted to take over the JBM, but he somehow managed to elude serious trouble for the rest of his life. The last mention of him in the police bladders was in 2002 parole violation. He died in a nursing home in 2016, just a few days before his 77th birthday. What an ignominious end for a man whose very name had every criminal in Philadelphia quacking in their shots. Next on the list comes a man with killer good looks. Well, let's emphasize on the killer part for right now. Perhaps the most notorious serial killer of American history, Ted Bundy was literally the guy your parents warned you about. Outwardly charming and personable, his main motive was to pretend to be disabled or otherwise in need of assistance, sometimes even employing fake casts. He usually approached young people. Then he'd knock them unconscious with a pipe or something and handcuff them. and then he'd cart them away to do unspeakable things. He would even sometimes bring the deceased victims home to further defile their bodies, and was even known to display their severed heads around his apartment like ghostly trophies. His time of terror began in 1974, and even though the police had a pretty good description by the late 70s, he kept evading the suspicion because he was good looking as well as intelligent. Once he was finally caught, he escaped prison not just once but twice. His first escape lasted only a week, but after his second, which by the way landed him on the most wanted list of FBI, he was able to elude authorities for a few months, during which he murdered 6 more people. He was finally caught not due to a helpful public but because of a simple traffic violation. He got his death sentence and was executed in an electric chair in 1989. Next on the list comes one killer roomie, Gary Ray Bowles, also known as the 1-95 killer, a guy you would not want to meet in a dark alley or anywhere else for that matter. After kicking off his 1994 killing spree by beating his 49-year-old roommate to death, he began hanging out in bars, picking interest in potential victims until he could get them all alone. He went on to strangle one man, he killed a man with a shotgun, and robbed at least 3 more victims. And although he became quickly a person of interest to the authorities investigating the crimes, he was able to keep ahead of them by staying on the move. He was also featured on America's Most Wanted that summer, which actually resulted in his housemates calling him in. Incredibly, simply just getting a tan and growing a mustache changed his appearance enough to convince the police that they had the wrong guy, and he was released. Just a week after being added to the FBI's Most Wanted list, he was arrested for yet another murder, after which he quickly broke down and confessed to his 6 killings in total. At trial, he was sentenced to death, but the sentence was outturned due to the presentation of improper evidence. Last on the list but not the least comes the man who was a mastermind of evil. You know who the guy is? Osama bin Laden, the man who founded Al-Qaeda and was a mastermind behind the 9/11 attacks. But this wasn't a pivotal event in American history that landed him on the most wanted list of the FBI. He had already been a target of the FBI for over a decade by 2001. This was due to the activities of his followers. These included events such as 1993 Mogadishu bombing, which killed 18 Americans, the other attack on the World Trade Center the same year, which killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000. The 1995 attempted assassination of the Egyptian president Hosni Mubarak, the US National Guard Training Center bombing in Riyadh later that year, which also killed 6 and injured hundreds. In 1996 bombing of the US Air Force complex in Tehran, which is in Saudi Arabia. This attack killed 19 people and injured more than 100. And the twin bombings of the US embassies in Africa in 1998 as well, which between them claimed the lives of 224 people. The 9/11 attacks were simply the grand culmination of bin Laden's holy war against the West, which had the effect of driving him into hiding for the rest of his life. That life came to an end on May 1st, 2011 when US forces stormed his hidey hole in Abbottabad, which is by the Afghanistan border, and actually shot him dead. I guess it was a fitting end for a man likely responsible for more deaths than all of the other most wanted fugitives combined, and who was basically USA's boogeyman for around 20 years. With that, the video comes to an end, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please subscribe to my channel to see more such content. I post regular videos. Also, tell me in the comment section down below which one of these fugitives did you find the most scary. Also, please press the bell icon so that you could get notified every time a new video is uploaded. Please take a lot of care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video, hopefully.